sit. This is Luna, and this is Luna's roadmap to success. Now Luna, we're gonna give her an extra treat because she's just such a good puppy. Luna's taken our puppy class, but Luna is a puppy mill dog. She was bought at a pet store, and her guardians have done a tremendous job of getting help for her, which a lot of people don't. When they have a dog that's difficult, they just let it go. And so she's made a lot of progress, but there's still some issues, and so that's why we set up this session. So basically, the video above talks about the counter conditioning as well as helping the kids practice running around and helping her have a positive association with it. So I'm not going to talk about that stuff, but I want to talk about a lot of the other things that we talked about off camera. Now, we're going to send you an email where it's going to have the information about the veterinary behaviorists that can help with the prescribing the drugs. It was not Prozac, is that correct?
She helps a lot with things.
Okay. So basically, we want to make sure that if you're using drugs can be very helpful. But in my experience, a lot of vets simply prescribe drugs because they don't understand behavior. Now, in this case, I think the drugs have actually helped. The guardian actually asked the vet to provide the drugs, but we'd like to get some people involved who are, we might have to change the doses, things along those lines. Drugs should be part of a greater rehabilitation plan, not simply putting your dog on drugs and hoping that it's going to fix it. And the guardians here understand that, but a lot of people watch these videos do not. All right, so there have been a couple of nips by Luna. And from what I've been able to discern, now there are a couple times where it's hard to identify why, the reason why for them, but I think a lot of these things is Luna's barking and reacting because she wants the people or the things to go away. And a lot of this I'm going to chalk up to genetics because her guardians did take her to puppy classes and all the rest of that fun stuff, but when you do have a dog in a puppy mill, they probably had a pregnant mother that was probably stressed out, and that can change the DNA of the puppies. Also, the puppies are raised by a stressed out mother. She's more likely to nip at them, things like that. That can also create some stress and anxiety in the dog. And also, there's nature and nurture. So we're kind of dealing with both of those. So we're hoping that the drugs are starting to make a little bit of a difference. We want to try to incorporate some other things, like teaching her to carry things in her mouth, because it seems like when she gets over aroused, she tends to nip or mouth a little bit the kids in the house. Now, she doesn't do it hard, but it could be an indication of she's getting up close to her threshold or she's over aroused. And so teaching a dog, if you have a dog that is mouthy like that, teaching them to pick up a squeaker toy or a football or something that they can keep in their mouth, they can squeeze on it, which leaves a little bit of tension and stress for them. It also negates the one thing that they have that could be dangerous, and it gives them something to do. Now, the guardian asked me about muzzle training for her. We have some very exuberant kids in the house. And so the guardian asked about some muzzle training. I really stay away from muzzle training because in my experience, a lot of people think that the muzzle solves their problem. They put the muzzle on the dog and they don't fix the dog's problem or do what these guardians have done and ask when they come by. And then suddenly they put the dog in this jackpot situation and it makes it worse. So Anna's going to come back and she's going to go over some muzzle training. And so if you use the muzzle, that should be when you think the dog is going to be okay in a situation. You've practiced, you've helped the dog set up for success by getting her exercise and all the rest of the things that we can do to set her up for success. And there's a sliver that she might do it, so we're going to use it just to make sure that she's safe. But if your gut tells you that she's got a bite or that she's not going to be successful in that situation, listen to your gut. I have a big one. Don't take your dog into situations they're not prepared for, because the more they practice that behavior, the more they're likely to continue that behavior. We want to really stack success on top of success. Now, dogs have something called trigger stacking, which is essentially a dog version of a bad day. It's a number of elements that all can congregate at once or in an order, and then the dog eventually explodes. And so one of the first things I talk to the guardians about is keeping a journal. So I'd like to start a journal for every day. We're going to start off by writing the date at the top. We're going to write the date, the time that we fed the dog or got the first amount of exercise. We're going to talk about how much exercise the dog got, the number of repetitions or whatever it was, as well as when we feed the dog, if anything really good happens for the dog, and if anything negative happens, if she does bark at someone, if she does lunge at somebody, whatever it is. When she does have a negative experience, we want to put down as much data that might be helpful for later. So what we're going to start off by doing is ask ourselves, what about the dog? Well, I guess in the immediate, what I would do is, what was going on immediately preceding this nip? Was somebody mowing the lawn? Were the kids screaming? Was there a guy on a skateboard? Was there a dog barking? There might be some of those things that could be contributing to the trigger stacking. So we want to look at our environment and anything that might have been contributing to the issue. Then I'm going to ask myself, how long before that has it been since the dog was exercised? There's some exercise right there. And so a lot of dogs are underslept and under-exercised. So dog exercise needs to be about every 2 to 4 hours. But remember, before the exercise, especially anything with that's a repetitive deal, we want to make sure that we're talking to the vet and making sure that the vet doesn't say that we will put the kibosh on that until the dog's done developing. I would like, because she's a German Shepherd, I would like to have her hips x-rayed, and so we find out whether or not she is prone to hip dysplasia or not. Usually they don't want dogs going upstairs or jumping up a lot if they are prone to hip dysplasia, because that can lead to the ball coming out of the socket. The more that happens, the more difficult it's painful for the dog. And anytime we have a dog with a behavior problem, we want to make sure there's not a physical issue that's impacting it as well. So for the journal, you're writing down the exercise, notable events like feeding. You can put potty training, pottying on there. Notable events, as well as anything that happened. So the stuff that was going on in the environment, the exercise, and the amount of sleep the dog had before. So we kind of know, okay, the dog was probably underslept or under-exercised. Then we want to look at, how did the bite happen? Did the dog nip once and then back up and bark a lot? Did it nip and hold down? Now, luckily, she has been nipping and letting go. And dogs typically, when they bite to correct, they typically do it with the same intensity unless the stimulus changes. So when these things have happened, she's been a nip and then moving away. Now, she has done machine gun barking and lunged at people, but we haven't had the combination of machine gun barking and then lunging and biting. Now, I think in a lot of her situation, we have. Okay, so I guess we have. Sorry, I take that back. Now, in her situation, when these things have happened, I believe all of these bites have happened when she's been over threshold or there's been some contributing factor. So one of the things happened where one of the guardians were like, I didn't think we should take her to that particular thing. I had a bad feeling about it or whatever. I can't remember the details. But listen to your gut. If your gut tells you that something's going on, don't do it. And we have instincts for reasons. Also, we want to look at, going back to the journaling, how was the dog's behavior afterwards? How long did it take her to settle down? When she did she nip and back away, or did she nip and hold down, or did she nip and come forward? Did she bark preceding it? Did she bark after it? Did you notice anything of her, any type of body mechanic or movement that preceded the bite? What we're looking for is we like to look for her tells. So we set up a great greeting for her, and I would like you to practice the same greeting that we did. Maybe it would be nice to have Anna set up that greeting, because Anna's done it really a couple times, and she can walk you through it. So maybe the next couple of times that Anna comes by, maybe you could arrange to have a neighbor or one of your kids' friends sitting out there, and then Anna brings her out the same way that she did for me, and that way she's used to that, and then eventually you can bring people out, and then we set her up for success. We exercise her first. She gets a bunch of yummy treats on the way there. If she gets in trouble, Anna pulls her away. The only thing that Laura's very, very experienced when it comes to reading dog body language, the only thing that Laura and I saw was the dog froze for a second and then went with the machine gun barking. And it was very short, so it wasn't big, but I was specifically not doing anything to trigger the response. I was sitting, I was looking away, I was doing all the right things, and she still reacted, which makes it a little bit concerning. But the good thing about that whole incident is we saw that there was a little bit of a freeze, and then it happened. So if you see her going from an open mouth to a closed mouth and a freeze, that's when we want to call her away and take her away. We don't want to jerk the leash or pop the leash or say anything loud, because a lot of times that can happen. Now, if you know that she's going to bite, it's okay to pull her away with the leash, but we really want to try to condition her to come to us. So when you're on the leash and you're on a walk and she takes a couple steps away from you, that's a wonderful time to ask her to come back to you and give her that treat and say the recall word. And so every once in a while, she's just used to you calling her back and then coming back and getting a treat. If you can get her out of that situation before she explodes, that's really the name of the game. Now, a couple things when it comes to dog-bit interactions. Front facing is very confrontational. Leaning over a dog is very domineering. And also people who have big sudden movements or large movements can also set a dog off. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that when she's approaching someone, the person is very soft in their body language. They're hopefully preferably still. They're not offering any direct eye contact. Be nice if they had some treats. The guardians have noticed that she seems to do a little bit better if they have a dog. That might be something we incorporate later on. But the idea is we want to be able to read the dog's body language and see if there are other tells that we can identify. Another little trick that you might want to use is doing what I'm doing right now, is get somebody to film the incident from the side, from about maybe the 7 o'clock angle. So I can see the dog here and the stimulus there, so I get the whole picture. Keep your phone sideways or camera like this so you get a bigger picture. You can watch it later on your big screen TV. You can watch it in slow motion. You can slow it down. You say, you know what, right before she exploded, her ear went to the side, or her tail went up, or she stopped breathing. Knowing those tells and getting her out of there quickly is really, really helpful. Okay, so at the end of the day, you want to give her a letter grade, A through F, based on her overall behavior for that day. Now, I would also like the guardians, the 2 adult guardians in the house, to start practicing calibrating the dog's energy level. I have a scale of 1 to 10 where 0 is asleep and 10 is as crazy as you've seen the dog get. We prefer to not let her go past level 5 energy, the midway point. So what we want to do is have the 2 guardians, when she's playing with the other dog or the kids or whatever it is, every once in a while just throw out like, 6. And the other guardians will be like, no, you're crazy, that's a 3. That's okay for you to have different opinions at first. Eventually, you'll kind of marry them together and you'll say 7, yeah, it seems like a 7. Once you have arrived at that point, anytime she passes level 5 energy, she should get a timeout. Now, speaking of this, I'd like to make sure that you are arranging to have regular play dates for her with other puppies. One of the things I'm going to talk to Anna about is possibly having her maybe drop in for some socialization at one of Anna's classes on a weekend, because she does really well when there are dogs around, and she loves dogs, and there are people around. Well, we can kind of sneak interactions with the people while she's in class and distract her with playing with the other dogs and in a comfortable environment that she knows. And so I'll talk to Anna about that, and that might be an option for us to do as well. But we'd like to have her get a variety of different types of puppies and dogs for her to play with, so she builds up more experience. That experience will lead to confidence, and we want to make sure that she right now she's practicing barking at the dog over there, barking at the dog over here and here, and so she's fence fighting, and that can create some frustration. And so we want to make sure that we counter that with some positive interactions with good dogs that is a good positive experience. Now, when you're doing the play date here, again, you can exercise. Now, don't over-exercise. We can exercise a little bit before the people come over. I would also recommend that you walk them maybe a little bit ahead of time together. We call it parallel walking. So human, and the dog's on the outside. We do a little bit of a walk, maybe down 2 driveways, turn around and walk back. The dogs seem to be okay. They don't interact on this walk. They're seeing each other, smelling each other, hearing each other, and they're doing something together. And then if you think your vibe feels good, bring them in the yard and let them run around and play. But the more dogs that she has come over here and she plays and she has success with, the better in terms of experience, but also it gives you an opportunity to practice timeouts. Again, for her, I think a big contributing factor is her getting too high. So now the parents have figured out how to marry their ranging of the energy level. When she's playing with other dogs here, we need to make sure we're giving her timeouts. And if you're sending out these play dates to people on our Puppy Class Parents page, they're already familiar with the concepts. So they're helping you out with it. And we have plenty of yard here to do social distancing. There's going to be a couple months you're not going to want to do it outside. So I really want you to emphasize that as much as you can through the end of this year, a minimum of once a week. And if it's not going well, take them out, take them for another little walk, and then try it again. If it doesn't work or your vibe says no, there's nothing wrong with setting it up and not having a successful one. It's better to have a non-successful one that you cut it before anything happens than have one that turns into a bad session. All right, let me see. We also talked about exercise. Now, because she's a shepherd, I don't know if necessarily going up and down the stairs is ideal. So again, make sure you talk to your vet. Until they're a little bit over a year, their bones and their joints are pretty developing and very rubbery, so we can cause some damage with repetitive injuries. So it might be that game where we have them practice coming towards her in the house, but because she does like to fence fight and the guardians have difficulty killing her away, that would be a wonderful exercise. So what I'd like you to do is count out maybe 50 treats or pieces of kibble, whatever you need to get her to come. And then basically put half of those out in the kids once a day. That's one of the parts of the exercise regimen. We let her get over there and wait for her to be over there, but not barking at something. Not if she's barking or lunging or sniffing. Don't try to call her in that case because you're going to help her practice not coming to you. So when she's over, like by that bench over there, and she's just kind of hanging out, and there's no distractions, tell her to come. When she comes, remember the order for the delivery of the treats. So I'll show you right here. So I'm going to call her, and then and you want to deliver the treat within 2 seconds maximum, but a third of a second should be your goal. So you give the command word first. When the dog does the action, that would get the click, or somebody just does the action. And then you give the treat as the reward. So that means if I hear the word come and I come to you, I get the reward. So I'm going to say come. She's over with Laura right now. When she's one step away from me, that's when I'm going to say the word come. Then when she gets close to me, then I'm going to pop the treat in her mouth and say the word come. Luna, come. There we go. So I said come. She came over. It was within 2 seconds. I gave her the treat after she came. So if you're asking her to sit, you tell her to sit. Or if you're manipulating her to sit, when you're right about to get her butt on the ground, then you say sit. If you're using a clicker, you click when the butt's on the ground, and then you give her the treat and say whatever the command word is. Also, I want you to watch for open mouth to closed mouth. That could be probably another one. I don't know if, Laura, did you notice that at the beginning?
Where's she working?
Yeah.
I want to say she's close enough.
So Laura thinks that's the case, but it's been 3 hours. And this is why it's so important to document those things right away afterwards, because you're going to have the freshest memory. So if you see her like, boom, 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 that's probably the litany of what's going to go. So if you see her going like this, and Luna, come, and then I get her to go away, we prevented her from exploding. And also, when people are going to pet her, or you or anybody in the family is going to pet her, anytime that she turns her head away, when you reach towards her, or lowers head, or backs up, you should stop trying to pet her. That's where we're saying, I prefer you don't pet me right now. I've had some dogs where I actually train them and condition them to turn their head to the side, and then when the person walks away. Now, it might be something we do as well, because that's called a cutoff signal. Well, one of Turd Regas calls it a cutoff signal. But it's one of those things that if the dog learns, if I don't like the person, I turn my head and they go away, that's a lot better than the machine gun barking, the lunging, and all the rest of that stuff. Okay, so so twice a day with about 25 treats, but again, play around with the quantities until you know how much exercise she actually needs. But the more she practices running away from that fence to you guys, the easier it's going to get her to do it when there's a dog or something over there. Now, the dad of the family did an amazing job. She went and barked at the dog that was over there. He casually got up. He walked over there. His energy was wonderful. He showed her that he had a treat. She sniffed it, and he let her away. That's the best way to do it. She won't listen to you. You could attach a leash and collar. Just make sure you don't stomp over here. The guardians here, their energy has really been great. So, all right, let me see. What else do I want to talk about? I'm just thinking if Laura has something while my brain comes up with other things to talk about. I'd like you guys to work on the celebrating, which is, remember, rewarding the dog when it offers the behaviors that you want. Now, one of the things we could do, you guys could start working on the carry command. So every time that she picks up a ball or whatever it is, really what I do is I hold the ball. If I hold it out and the dog takes it, when right before it puts its mouth on, I say take, and I let go if I know the dog's going to hold on to it. And I'll have Anna, we'll do a little research and come up with it, but I'd like to be able to get her to put something in her mouth and carry it around and have her keep it in her mouth. I'd also like you to get a water buffalo horn, make sure it's very thick and she can't splinter it. And I'd like you to get a couple Nylabones, different flavors and different shapes. And sometimes it's the flavor that'll make it interesting. And if you have to, you might want to give it to your other dog, and sometimes one dog has it, then the other dog wants it. But water buffalo horns are very durable. And it might be something that she enjoys, and just we want her to be able to chew stuff. Now, I want you to talk to Suki at the Green Spot about her food. I forgot to ask what brand of food, but make sure that you're rotating food. I mean, at this point, I'm assuming she's on puppy food, which is usually the same brand. But Suki will let you know. She can look up for the breed characteristics, when the best time to switch a German Shepherd off of baby food or puppy food would be. And also check out, because there might be different types of proteins that might be beneficial. So you might try, sometimes that's those other things, there could be allergies, there could be some things along those lines that are contributing factors. So things might happen that way. All right, let me see, did you have anything else that you...
Teaching her to go to a long-term confinement area.
Oh yes, the bell, thank you. See, that's why, one of the reasons why Laura's so awesome. So the Guardians here hung the bell from the doorknob, and that's a mistake that a lot of people make when they want their dog to potty. And so it kind of didn't work for Luna, but that's to our benefit for now. Laura had a great suggestion of allowing the dog to go to the long-term confinement area when it wants to. So what I would do for that is take your bell off the door, and is it a jingle bell?
Yeah.
So you probably have 6 sets of balls. So cut one of those sets of balls off, and then what you want to do is you're going to hang them in different parts of the house. So every time you take her to a long-term confinement area, what I'd like you to do is shake the, I'm trying to think of the order for this and see if I get it right. Laura will correct me if I get it wrong. So what I would do is I would shake I would throw the treat into the deal, and at the same time I throw the treat into long-term confinement, I would shake it. So she's hearing it before she enters it. And then when she gets in there, I would ring it again. Would you ring it again when she gets the reinforcer? I don't think, yeah, I was thinking you wouldn't do that. So so basically you ring it, you throw the treat in there, as she starts to go in there, you ring it, and then once she's in there completely and after she gets the treat, I would stop ringing it at that point. And then let her come back out. So it's not that you're getting put in there, and when she comes out, I would throw another treat in there again. I would do it 10 times in a row, standing right outside the door to your long-term confinement area. The next time you do it, start out right outside, and then after she goes in the first one, take one step back. And then again, as you're throwing it, jingle, and she goes in there, and you jingle until she licks it up, and then you stop to jingle. And then you're taking a step away. So by the time you get done with this, the second time you do it, you should be able to do this from about 10 feet away, and she's running all the way into the long-term confinement area. And I would like you to practice this maybe 10 treats 2 or 3 times a day. Then every room that the house that she's going to hang out in, have one of those bells. So, and eventually she can learn, if this is too much for me, I can go ring the bell, and then they'll go open the door and let me in the basement, and I can go to my long-term confinement area and calm myself down. Now, I'd also like Luna to start incorporating more naps. I think that she is underslept. And so a German Shepherd puppy probably needs to be sleeping about 14 to 17 hours a day. When we're awake all day long, when we're home now during Corona, she's going to be underslept. And she's not going to want to sleep if she can hear the kids. So what I would do is I would marry it, because she seems to be tired, surprise, surprise, after exercise. So after the game of coming back and forth from the fence, or the scent games, or maybe more for the walks, when she comes back in, we put her in the long-term confinement area, give her a bully bite or something to keep her occupied. Then we close the door and we leave the area, and she's in there for an hour. The kids are not around. There's no sights or sounds or distractions. Even if she doesn't sleep, a lot of people I had a security camera, so I can actually watch my dog in long-term confinement without coming and opening the door to the room. That might be something you can get, so you can observe, is she sleeping and relaxing in there? Even if she's not sleeping, after 3 or 4 days, she might start to sleep a little bit. But I think that getting her a little bit more sleep is going to be really helpful for her. Also, I want you to come up with an exercise regimen that is achievable for you, that you can do every day. Now, on walks, we want her to sniff as much as it's safe to do so on a walk. And she likes to sniff, but a lot of us, we want to get the dog moving because we don't realize they burn more energy by sniffing than from walking. So just give yourself the duration. If you have 20 minutes, I'm going to walk this way for 10 minutes. When 10 minutes eclipses, I cross the street and I come back for the next 10 minutes, and then we're done. And so I don't care how long we go or how far we go, it's just a duration. So I think if we can up her exercise and up her sleep, that's going to be really profound. Also, I'd like you, before she has activities, to start calibrating how much exercise she needs for any one particular thing. So maybe before a puppy play date, she needs 5 fetches. Maybe before she goes on a walk, she needs 10 fetches. Before she meets somebody, maybe she's 25 fetches, or whatever the activity is. And so we play around and ebb and flow with those, and then that's why we're writing in the journal, so you start recognizing, you know what, she got this much exercise, this duration of time before this activity, and she performed well. So you're going to give a letter grade overall at the end of the day, but you might want to also, for each interaction, give a letter grade. So that way you know, okay, well, I tried 15 fetches, then we met somebody outside, and she still machine gun barked. I did 20 fetches, and then she met somebody outside, and she didn't. Well, maybe that 20 is the magic number. And so it's going to play around, and also it depends on the activity. If you have a dog that's walking a nice, calm heel in front of your house, she might be able to react one way, where if the dog's running and barking, she might be more reactive. So take a note of that when you're doing the journal, how the speed of the skateboarder or the other dog or the person. Were they talking really loud on their phone? Were they jumping up and down? Were the kids kept on falling down? Well, those are things that can cause a contributing factor for her. Let me think. I think that's about everything we need to go over. Now, if you have any questions, I want you to text me. I mean, you have Anna's number. I'm pretty sure you're going to have Laura's number before too long. But we're here to support you. And like I said, I'm going to talk to Addie about working up some sort of discounted rate, since we're going to come back more to work with her. But you are making progress. Anna's seeing it. From what Laura and I expected, based on what was described to us, we expected a lot worse. So order yourself a little extra pie next time that you're actually at a restaurant. Sometimes the humans need to recharge their batteries and recognize, I am making progress. It's hard to see it in the storm. You can't see the forest through the trees and all the rest of those expressions, but you are making some progress. You can call her away from there, and these things are going really well. Or going in the right direction. Now, the last little thing, if you're going to have somebody that's come by, I'd like you to do the scent introduction that I talked about. So the way you want you to do it, and I know it sounds a little silly, but it really, really works, because again, it's what we talked about earlier. We're making an easier version of this activity. So before she's somebody, your sister-in-law or whoever the person is, have them take, at the end of the day, just take, when they're at the end of the day, take their clothes off and rub a hand towel on both sides around their body, put it in a Ziploc bag and give it to you. And then you wash your hands before you do this. You take the towel out of the bag, grab about 10 treats in this hand, put them both behind your back like this. Luna is the camera. So I hold it out, she sniffs it, I take it away, and I give her a treat. Well, actually, I would, let me reverse that. So I let her sniff it, and when she gets done sniffing it, I take it away, I'd say Trish, or whatever the name of the person is, and then put a treat in her mouth. Now, if I don't know who the person is, well, I would do a different exercise for that. But basically, so what we're going to do is for about 10 treats, 3 times a day, I get to smell that person the day before they come over. So now by the time they come over, I smell that person they're associated with the freeze-dried beef liver or whatever the treat is, and they have a good association. And also remember, small steps. When you have somebody come over, it'd be nice if you could do it for your neighbors. Here, or come. There we go. What a beautiful girl she is. So it'd be nice if you do this with your neighbors, because if you're with your neighbors, and right there, see how she leaned back and she stopped, she kind of pulled her head away from me? She's saying, I don't want you to pet me, I want to go do whatever she's doing right behind the camera. Recognize that. If you're petting her, she disengages, allow her to disengage. That makes her more likely to want to come back in the future. So what I'd like you to do is see if you can enlist a couple of your neighbors or somebody that's in the neighborhood so they can come by real quick. Just do the meeting on the street. So the first time, and again, you should do the treat trail so she gets led up there with nobody there once or twice. And then the third time, and you maybe have Anna, like I said, have Anna over here the first next time you do this. And so you've guided her out there with getting a bunch of treats and nobody at the end of the trail. And then Anna, who she likes and trusts, comes over and Anna leads her up to that person. Anna can show you how to pull her away and what to do if she does react. And then eventually that person goes with you for a little bit of a mini walk. And then they leave and go home. The next day, or next time you practice it, they do the mini walk and then they come and sit in your backyard for maybe 2 minutes. Then they leave. Now remember, before they leave, she should make sure that Luna sees them, and they should give her a treat and then they stand up. And as they're walking away, it'd probably be a good idea for them to have a handful of these really good treats. So hopefully Luna, she's treat motivated. She's got her hand here and she's punching the hand. That's great. And remember, have the guardian, the other people holding out their hands, because she does like to touch hands. That's a nice way to get her engaging with people without. There's a lot of benefits to it. Now, Anna, it looks like either the guardians or Anna's taught them to talk, to catch. That's another great game for people to play with the dog, because the dog gets to moderate whatever distance they need between. And there we go. We're about to have feeding time. She's right behind me. And a snuffle mat. So make sure you're feeding her on a snuffle mat every single day. I'd like to, and what's the new word you want to use? Whichever you want to do it. So remember, you would say the word right before she takes the bite of the food. But the guardian's out right out here. She's feeding her out of a slow feeding. And I'm watching because she's doing a great job. She's waiting. Very good. So remember, the more you build in those pauses, the dog has to wait before it gets to do something. The pre-max, that's going to be really, really helpful. Let me. Oh, right there. There was a little bit of a freeze. Okay, well, I'm sure there's some other things here that I can't remember to go over, but I'll include them in the write-up if I can't remember what they are. There was one other thing, the touch stick, and we can talk about that later when we come back. Start feeding her. Feeding. I did remember. So what I want you to do when you're feeding her is I'd like you to start feeding the dogs together but separately. Sounds weird. So I want you to be in the kitchen or whatever the area is. Both dogs are outside, and make sure the dogs are calm. If they're really excited, that's not ideal. So a little exercise first, maybe. Give them 10 minutes to recover always after exercise. Then bring them out, and they have to stay outside the kitchen. And then you put the snuffle mat with Luna's food, and we put the slow feeder with the other dog's food. And then we invite, and make sure they're about 10 feet apart. And we're in the kitchen, and we invite the other dog to come in after the human's in there, eats like a couple bites of a banana, chip, or cracker. That helps both dogs practice a little self-restraint. Also helps the human eat first. Dogs do eat in the order of their rank. And then once you're done, you invite the first dog, the other dog who's a little bit older and has better behavior. And when he gets to eat, right before he takes his first bite of food, we say nuggets or pasta or meatball or whatever the command word is, and then he eats his food. As soon as the guardians here right now leave the food in the bowl for too long. So as soon as, if he comes over and sniffs it and walks away, as soon as he walks away, that's his way of saying, I'm not hungry right now. We pick it up, we dump it empty, we put the empty bowl back in and down. The dog will come and lick the empty bowl, and after it licks a couple times, then the dog has to leave the room. Then we invite Luna to come in, and Luna eats out of her snuffle mat. And it's the same rule. As soon as she walks away or stops eating, we pick up the snuffle mat, we probably dump that one empty, we could roll it back up, put it back up, and then they're both done. So dogs have to wait for permission to eat food, and they have to wait for the humans to eat something first, and they have to wait for the human to and allow them to do it, but only one at a time. So the first dog sees that the humans are keeping Luna from getting close to me while I'm eating, and then Luna sees when I'm eating, they're not allowing the other dog to come in there. And remember, when the dogs are playing together, don't let them play too rough. Same thing with the kids. Anytime she gets past level 5 energy, she needs to get that timeout, wait for her to calm down, and then let her go back to it. The more you give her timeouts now, the less she'll have to do it later. And the less likely she's going to be to react if she isn't all worked up and overexcited. All right, well, that's all I can remember right now. This is a little bit of unusual roadmap to success for me because I have a litany of things I normally go through, but since we already sent so many people out and Luna's already done so many things in the puppy class, we changed it up a little bit. So if you have questions about any of the stuff we went over here or anything else, please let me know. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. Well, this is Luna's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.